We're really lucky to be welcoming Zubair Jr., founder of ZNotes, an educational resource platform that has been incredibly successful. And he is, after founding it in school, he has since won the Diane Legacy Award for it. Without further ado, I'm just going to let you get on with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadeed. It's so nice to be here. You know, I was gonna apply to Warwick. I went to study math, and then I didn't, because you guys have STEP requirements. But I ended up coming here a couple years later. Thank you so much for joining and for waking up on a Saturday morning. I want to talk about something a little bit more philosophical this morning, and hopefully we'll ground it with my experiences. But I want to talk about purpose, passion, and mission. And it's something that's overlooked when we talk about social entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship in general. But hopefully we'll dive through. But first off, I want to say that this is a workshop, so I want you guys to ask questions. If you think something during the session, clarification, raise your hand. If it's appropriate, I'll answer it then. Otherwise, I'll take it at the end of the session. I also want to share ideas, so if you don't have any questions but have suggestions or things that you've done personally and that you want to suggest or share with the rest of you, then please do that as well. And Nikita will help me at the end to have a facilitate Q&A session. So we'll have a good chunk of time just to talk about your questions and your perspectives as well. So let's make it a conversation. Let's not make it only me talking. Thank you so much for that. So I want to start off by asking you to help me answer this question. So where does purpose come from? And if you don't mind, if you have your phone, you can scan the QR code or go to slide.com and put that number in. And it'll be great because then we can start to hear from you where did it come from? Does it come from your experiences, your parents, your family members, your something you faced in childhood, something you faced when growing up? So I'll switch over to a word cloud to see what your guys' suggestions are. And if someone wants to kind of share immediately up front as well, that'd be amazing too. Let's get started. So, where does our purpose come from? It's a little bit philosophical, but think about it from the perspective of why you do something. What's your social problem you want to solve? As a social entrepreneur, you're obviously looking at something, you're looking to change something, you're looking to solve a global problem, a problem that other people are facing, you're trying to create a positive impact. So what's the reason? Which problem do you go to? Why do you gravitate towards that? Let's see. People say experiences. Okay, I think that's a big one, and it's the most important one as well because it's oftentimes when you face the problem yourself that you're able to really resonate, understand why that problem exists, and then go about solving it. Values, I like that very much. I think values sometimes overlooked these days, but it's such a critical part of who we are. Sense of fulfillment, I like that. Making your parents proud, through empathy, family, upbringing. Upbringing is an interesting one. How many of you have been brought up in the UK straight? Kind of like this is where you've been born and brought up? Couples? What about international students? That's cool. More internationals, that's interesting. What do you feel about that? The fact, another question. Did you live in your home country or were you living as expatriates abroad as well? So, who was living in their home country but internationally? Okay, most of you. Anyone who is an expatriate? Okay, some of you. So that's really interesting because when your values, your experiences vary so much because not only do you have your kind of cultural, your parents have their nationality, their kind of their own ideas, the culture that comes through, and then you are in a new place and you're also like feeding into the culture and traditions of where you are. Thank you so much for adding and sharing this. It's really good. I want to go back and first off start with a quote that I really like. Nietzsche. He says, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And this is really important. We'll come back to this because as social entrepreneurs, more than often, you're going to find out there's going to be problems, there's going to be challenges, and it's going to be your why that will continue to drive you to do what you want to do. And as I said, I want to ground this session by sharing my personal journey of how I guess, identified my own purpose, my passion, and my mission. It will kind of combine a little bit my startup and my organization, as well as my personal journey as well. By the end of it, I would like to kind of disconnect and show you why a personal mission and an organizational or startup mission are both very, very critical things that we should be considering. But to kind of kick it off, my origin story. So I was an international student. I was an expatriate. My parents were Pakistani, but I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. And I went to a British international school, and there I am, trying to wear fence with a flip in hand. The funny thing is that actually I'm probably still doing that, just like taller fences and factory works. But I came across this realization, and it's quite obvious that here I was doing this international examination. Some of you must have done the GCSEs. The international GCSEs are things that have been taken by hundreds of thousands of students all over the world. And the distribution of resources and support varies so drastically. Some are given not only textbooks and resources, but then they're able to, get extra support through tutoring and all that kind of stuff, while others don't even have basic needs. They're homeschooled, they're using these exams as the only way to get to international universities or scholarships. So this struck me. I was 16, I finished my GCSE, and I thought, hey, I've written some revision notes, what can I do about it? So I was messing around with websites, and so I put up together a website, and it was a simple WordPress blog, and there was like a bunch of PDFs, and people discovered it, people found it, and were using it. My story would have ended there, except something happened. What happened was this guy, Adiji, around 2017, he emailed me saying, hey Zubair, I've been using your website, it's been amazing, thank you so much for that, but I thought of contributing some notes to your website. This was not the plan, I didn't set out that it was a community platform, but suddenly this student had discovered me, had understood, he'd resonated with my values, he realized the inequalities in the space, and he wanted to help. So that was the first instance of a contributor to come on board. He made some English revision notes, and then we kept going. And if I skip a few years, 7 years to be precise, Xenos transformed into a community-led online learning platform that is allowing students to maximize their potential through free access to high-quality education resources. Their revision notes, their podcasts, video content, a peer-to-peer learning space, and central to everything that we do is that we engage students at every step of the way. So it's everything for students, by students. And we were able to reach over 3.5 million students in the past few years from pretty much every single country. I wrote 196. Google Analytics tells me 200 and something else, and apparently the United Nations doesn't have 200 countries, so I was like, Google Analytics. Over 26 million hits. We have had hundreds of thousands of registered users now on our new learning platform. 1 to 28, something we can dive into if you're interested, but social return on investment is a metric used to define how much impact you're creating for every dollar invested in your organization. And One World assessed us in 2020 and said that we were creating $28 worth of impact for every dollar that was being input into the organization. And that one person, Abhijit, turned into hundreds of team members and contributors, and so we've been able to reach more and more people through this community platform. As we went about this, there were many stages of defining what our mission was. And I'll be honest, we went through many iterations of it. If you went back a couple websites, versions earlier, you'll see that we had very different phrasings of it. We came down to this, that we want to end educational inequality for young people everywhere. Our first one was very long, so we had to kind of like cut it down, sharpen it, and we had to kind of be very clear about who we wanted to help, why we wanted to help them, and where they were. So the what, the educational inequality, it wasn't that we wanted to create basic educational needs, because that is a problem that people need to be facing, but we're looking more at the inequality. We wanted to help young people, because obviously education is not strictly restricted for a certain group of people. It could be lifelong learners as well. So we wanted to define the who, and we wanted to define the where, which is everywhere. We wanted to stay global. We were looking at it from that global perspective, not in a certain geography. So that mission led to the Xenos ecosystem developing, and this is why it's very important to nail down that mission, because it was something that we could always come back to when we were thinking about what next to create, what next to develop. So from those revision notes, I can expand a little bit more there. But what we've done is we have video content. Again, we're using the same approach of engaging students to create the content and putting it through our platform. we came up with the fact that hey, you know what, we should also inspire these young people to become more change makers, to kind of make the impact in the world that they wish to see. So we ran a podcast, again using the same concepts, engaging with young entrepreneurs and innovators. We built a learning community. This came off the back of the fact that everyone was using this platform, coming onto the website, and then commenting their questions and answers. And we thought, how can we make this better? We launched on Discord a few years ago, and now we're a partner server with 12,000 members. And finally, a newsletter to talk not just about academics, but also the fact that there's so many challenges in your student journey, whether mental well-being, whether it's around peer pressure, whether it's around university choices, and we use our blog and newsletter to kind of help advise on that. So our mission was really central to what we decided to do. We were using this kind of statement, which sounds very simple, but it allowed us to say, why would we go about and do this rather than this? And that's really important because as an entrepreneur, you're going to be like facing different pathways. You're designing what you want to do. You can go down so many different routes, right? But why do you choose which one you go down? Your mission can help with that. So to just summarize what kind of happened in my journey, it started off by identifying a problem. And I identified a problem which resonated with many others around me. And that was why it took off. Secondly, it was about building a community. Again, something which I didn't pre-plan, but something that came about and was something that is so critical. We call ourselves a community-led learning platform. So it's built into our DNA that the community has to be central to everything that Xenos does. Thirdly, we defined our mission. We made sure that this captured exactly what we wanted to do. And finally, we iterated. So every time we go about and we think, oh, there's a new opportunity, there's a new collaboration, there's a new something new that we could do, we come back to that mission, we come back to those values that we set off with, and that will allow us to make sure that we're doing what we want to do and create an impact where we wish to do it as well. So I want to take this kind of like my story and maybe share a little bit about how we can apply this. I started off with saying purpose, passion, mission, and they're slightly disconnected but also very interlinked. In my journey, my purpose stemmed from my personal story, my experiences, my family background. It came from the fact that we, as a family, we have experienced great social mobility, but it's only thanks to education, for educational opportunities to be put forward to us. So the fact that I could go to international school, the fact that I could then come to London and study what I wished to study, those were decisions and opportunities that I only had because somewhere someone had allowed my parents to get access to education. So my purpose was very, very deeply ingrained in me. It was part of me from the very beginning. So it naturally fed into my passions and mission. The passion aspect doesn't necessarily have to be so socially driven. It could be anything you wish to do. So one thing that I really enjoyed doing around Xenos, around that time of life, was graphic designing and web development. So my purpose was around, making sure that everyone has opportunities to access education and unlock the other opportunities that come with being educated. But the passions were slightly more diverse. So there was, web development, graphic design, and that's why when the first few websites and web editions of Xenos came about, I spent a good chunk of time thinking about everything from front covers to back covers to what font spacing and what font selection to use. And I had a whole brand guideline for myself. And that was my interest. So I used my passion to feed into my purpose. And those interlink together. And oftentimes our passion also are things which you would go about to do without being told to do it. And because of that, we often start, because I was using YouTube to figure out how Photoshop worked. I would spend hours, not because someone's telling me I didn't have an exam to do on it, but just because I was interested in it. It also meant I was starting to get good at it. So combining what we wish to see changed, what kind of motivates us, even when we're feeling like this is not fun, that purpose plus the passion, the things that we enjoy doing, we're good at, if you can find those kind of the combination, the permutation, you can end up with a very, very relevant mission. And that mission is going to allow you to choose opportunities and work in the area that you wish to. So how many of you guys have heard of the Sustainable Development Goals? Hands? Most of you. Did you know that before the Sustainable Development Goals, there's something else called the Millennium Development Goals? You knew that? Yeah.
I do a course on it.
Oh, you did a course on it. Anyone else? Those are very popular. SDGs are definitely very well propagated and shared on the internet everywhere. So I didn't talk about it right at the beginning, but the Sustainable Development Goals provide a great framework, especially for social entrepreneurs, to be able to express what they wish to do, because it provides a very, unanimous framework or communication tool, so that anyone who's working and trying to understand what you're doing, we can be, oh, okay, you're working on goal number this. So for us, it's all about goal number 4, and we kind of dive really deep into it. I'll show you in a few seconds what that looks like. But I appreciate this is not comprehensive, but many of the social challenges that you might be wanting to do can be categorized into them. Sometimes they don't go into one, but multiple, and that's absolutely fine, that's actually great. But the reason to use something like SDGs, I know you know about it, is that it allows you to then, when you go to apply for grants or other organizations, or you want to work and collaborate with people, you find that common ground, right? You see, okay, yeah, we're both working on this sustainable development goal, or you are interested in this pathway as well. So what we did, and it's a little bit complex, or not really, I think. Something we've been working on a lot in the last few weeks is our theory of change. And again, I can dive into it a bit deeper in the Q&A if you're interested in it. But a theory of change essentially helps you share, as an organization, what interventions you're placing through your organization with people, to your audience, and what outcomes you wish to see. And then you test it. So you build this theory of change, we have a problem, we have our activities, the things that we do, and then we have 7 outcomes of what we wish to see changed. And then we test it by going through surveys, interviews, by looking at analytics, all these different things. But when we went about figuring out our outcomes, we not only kind of articulated them and made sure that they aligned with our different activities, we also went back to the Sustainable Development Goals. And those goals, which is, for example, goal number 4 is making quality education accessible for all. But that's very broad, right? What does education mean? Who's all? Is it lifelong learners? Is it students? Is it basic education? Is it tertiary education? All these different nuances come up. So if you go into the United Nations website, you'll see that the goals actually have sub-goals. So 4.1 through to 4. Whatever it is. And each sub-goal explains we need to make sure that basic literacy is available for those who are illiterate. We need to make sure that access to tertiary education is available. So you then go through these sub-goals and you're able to identify more clearly where you're working. And when you're trying to narrow down and make sure that you're very sharp in the operations and the mission that you have, you really need to go to those details to figure it out. So that's why, for example, our first 2 outcomes relate to 4.6, 4.1, 4.3. And you might see that at the bottom, it actually relates to goal number 8 as well, which is around, I think, employment. Yep, economic growth, decent work and economic growth. So we think that students interning with us are actually developing skills that can help them in employment, and so it actually links with another goal as well. So I think not only do you use the Sustainable Development Goals as ways to communicate what you do, but also go dive a little bit deeper. And when you do, you'll be able to find specific problems that you can connect with at a very detailed level. Finally, it doesn't have to be a project. So I don't think I call myself an entrepreneur until I had to call myself an entrepreneur, because I went and got a role as an entrepreneur in residence. And for a long time, I didn't consider Xenos as a startup because it was a project. I didn't even talk about it much. It was only around kind of like 3 or 4 years into the journey that I was able to refer to that actually this is an entity that can do something. But we've talked a lot about social entrepreneurship, and this might be contradictory to maybe old flagship event, and sorry for that. But to be an entrepreneur doesn't mean you need to set up and go out and build a business. When you want to make a social change or social impact, you can do it in so many different ways. There is the opportunity to set up a business and try to create value through the operations that you do, but it could be a project, it could be a website, or it could be you working within a corporation and doing entrepreneurship, which is a really, really growing concept. And actually it's really, really important, because if there weren't people working in corporates figuring out how to make their supply chain and their challenges better, then we would be in a problem as well. So when we talked about passion, purpose, and mission, there was a lot to do with, I guess, working towards a social challenge. That's what we're talking about all day. And what I want to just kind of set out here is that it doesn't have to be a specific, crafted business with a small canvas and this and that for you to be able to make the change. So alongside doing Z-Notes, my personal mission allows me to connect and work on different opportunities. So for example, I am an advisory board member at the EY Foundation, which is a charity which works towards helping students who are in need, so they're not in employment, education, or training, and make sure that they get opportunities and access. I work as an advisory board member for a research institute in Cambridge called the Digital Education Futures Institute, and that's about revolutionizing how digital education is going to go about to make it more accessible. I am a national youth leader for the Global Partnership for Education, which is a World Bank fund which has over $5 billion, and that works specifically to target and implement sustainable development goals for in the global south. So these are things that I do aside from my kind of main startup, and these are opportunities I've gone out of my way to get because they align with my personal mission. So ending educational inequality is Zeno's mission, but my personal mission is not too far away from that, but it allows me to then make sure that if there are other opportunities that come up, does it make sense? Does it align with my values? Does it align with what I want to get out, what I want to be able to do in this world? And it allows me to select those things. So whatever you wish to do, it might be that you want to start it, that's amazing, but it doesn't have to be. And it oftentimes, you can start making a change quicker if you don't kind of get into the details and intricacies of building a business. So I wanted to end with that. And I wanted to, again, I was sensitive because I have lots and lots of interns, and they all have different characteristics and personality traits. Some of them love to unmute on a team call with 50 people and tell their ideas, while others feel a little bit more shy. And I wanted to just be sensitive to that some people would like to ask questions by raising their hand. It's not a big group, but at the same time, you might feel like you have a question you want to ask anonymously. And so feel free to use Slido, where you can kind of put questions in and Nikita will help me facilitate. Or you can raise your hand and I can dive into whatever kind of queries, ideas, feedback that you have based on everything that's said. Thank you so much for listening. I hope some of it made sense. And if not, at least it gave you an idea of what you didn't want to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can give Zubair a round of applause up.